didn't realize the dump was basically like this.
It is what it is.
Okay. You want me to stay on the phone or? Where's that? Where's INT? Oh, it's on the.
Good. Thank you for coming out today. My name is Mark the Burgomaster. I'm the Western Region Vice President for NYSCOPBA, the New York State Correction Officers and Police Benevolent Association. With me today is Phil Palmisano, Assemblyman, and from Senator Tom O'Mara's office is Sarah Lattin, and also with me is Chris Summers from the Executive Board of NYSCOPBA in Albany, and Patsy Cornacchio. We're here to discuss the closures of Southport Correctional Facility here in Pine City, New York, and also Willard Correctional Facility, located about an hour and 15 minutes north of here. With that, I'm going to have Assemblyman Palmisano come up and speak, and then Ms. Lattin will speak as well for Senator O'Mara's office.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for coming. First, I want to say to the brave men and women who work here at Southport and up in Willard and all our facilities across the state, there are a number of us in state government and elective office who do appreciate your service and your sacrifice in the dangerous job you do each and every day, the job you do to keep us safe. As we all know, earlier this week, Governor Hochul announced 6 prison closures around the state just before the holidays. And under the law, there's supposed to be a 1-year notification. Unfortunately, the legislature granted permission to the executive to make these closures inside a year, within 90 days. And fast-tracking these prison closures it just adds insult to injury to the brave men and women who work in these facilities, work in a dangerous job. It adds insult and injuries to them, to their families, and to the communities where these individuals work and live. The administration will say that no one is going to lose their job. Give me a break. To say in 3 months or 4 months that you can find is enough time to decide on taking a new job, selling your house, relocating, moving your family, uprooting your family to new schools, that's too difficult. That's a tough time frame. That's nearly impossible. And again, it just shows complete disregard and adds insult and injury to these families. And we have stories of people who have been displaced from previous facilities who've transferred to here and other facilities and being displaced again. This policy of prison closure is a continuation of the dangerous and terrible policy of the previous predecessor in the governor's office. Whether it's the prison closures, whether it's restricting important disciplinary tools like the use of special housing units to segregate the most dangerous and violent inmates that are in these facilities. They're saying they're going to save money with these closures, but none of the money that they're supposedly saving is being invested back into these facilities to provide the tools and resources our corrections officers and staff need to be safe. There's an incredible amount of increase in drugs, gang violence, and assaults going on in our facilities. But yet this administration and the past administration has failed to put in place a secure vendor program to keep the drugs getting into our facilities, or utilizing drug dogs because we know the drugs get in through mail and through inmate visitation. All of these things have fostered a very dangerous powder keg environment inside our correctional facilities. And all you have to do is look at the number from the Department of Corrections. Over the past 5 years, inmate on staff assaults have increased over 38%. From 759 to 1,047. In addition, inmate assaults have increased over 31% over the past 6 years, consistently over 1,000 over the past 5 years, 1,204 this year. Southport here is a super maximum facility Why are we closing super maximum facilities or any maximum facility where it has our most violent and dangerous inmates? Again, this is just another pattern that we see from this administration, like the past administration, that favors the criminal, murderers, and rapists over our law enforcement and public safety. We've seen it in the policies that have been adapted in the past, whether it's dangerous bail reform, unchecked parole board that are releasing murderers, child rapists, and cop killers. These other policies and other policies are implementing that keeping criminals out in the streets that should be inside prison. And this is all being compounded even further with these prison closure announcements. One thing, the administration will say is that we have less inmates, so we need to close the facilities. But they have failed to be able to answer the question. Well, even with fewer inmates, how come the assaults and violence continue to increase inside our facilities, both on our staff and on other inmates? They can't answer that question. And making the decision to close the facility, they're saying we're going to close. They want to the governor says we want to repurpose these facilities, for alcoholism and drug treatment. But Willard's a drug treatment center in and of itself. Southport has programs in there to help rehabilitate our most dangerous individuals. It's supposed to be dealing with those special populations. But yet, why would you close down a facility like Southport that has the best infrastructure in place, has been invested, I believe over $45 million in state taxpayer dollars has been invested in this facility over the years to make improvements, to increase the wings, to help for rehabilitation units. $45 million in taxpayer money, but yet the state thinks this is a prison we need to close down? This makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. What this administration is continuing like the past administration. After millions of dollars invested, after the time, sweat, and tears the staff put in here, these facilities work at a very dangerous job. Let me be very clear. The increase in violence the rest of our communities will see from these closures, cramming more inmates into fewer facilities, and we should be spreading out those inmates to help have less violence, to spread them out so they can have better access to programs. And even with COVID, it doesn't make any sense. But let me be very clear to the Governor Hochul, the increase in violence these closures will cause and create, just as the other ones have created, now falls squarely on your doorstep. You will be held accountable for this. You should be held accountable for this. This is not just a terrible idea, a terrible policy. It is a dangerous policy. And this falls on you, Governor. This is a big mistake that you're making around the state, closing these 6 facilities. We don't need to be closing more facilities. We should be providing the tools and resources our corrections officers and staff need to be safe and keep other inmates safe, but they fail to do that. They'd rather have an open door policy and have more inmates and dangerous individuals in the street. Governor Hochul, this falls squarely on your doorstep. The dangerous violence that's going to increase from these closures falls on your doorstep. The devastation you're doing to these local communities with these closures, the devastation you're doing to these families falls on your doorstep. Shame on you. You can rescind this order, you can change this order, and we urge you to do so. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Lattin. I'm here on behalf of Senator Tom O'Mara. Unfortunately, he was unable to be here, but he asked me to come and say a few words on his behalf. Late October, Governor Hochul went out and said she was going to be creative with her decision on any closures of facilities. Only a couple weeks later, and a press release goes out. No notice to Senator O'Mara or the other state representatives. No notice to let them know that these facilities, and in particular Southport, was going to be closed. So not only Senator O'Mara and the other representatives, but the people, the men and women that work at this facility. They're human beings, Governor Hochul. They're people who aren't going to have the time. You're not giving them, you're not allowing that. Why the rush? Is it because you can't explain why you're closing these facilities? Because you don't see the faces, the impact. This is a political knife to the heart for these communities, and you're giving them no time whatsoever. The decision to close these isn't right-minded. You know that. That's why you're doing it so quickly. The point is that, to be creative, like the governor said, about these facilities you're closing, is this going to be another creative decision that Governor Cuomo made with Monterey? What happened with Monterey? That just sits there empty. This is millions, if not billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars being wasted. Millions were invested in Southport, just going to waste. It's a tragedy. But in closing, I just want to say on behalf of Senator O'Mara to all the men and women in these facilities being closed, that the support for you, from all of us, from your representatives and the community is with you. Thank you.
"283 officers, 19 sergeants. That's just what's affected at this one facility right now. 491 officers total between Willard and Southport. This is the effects of a closure that now these families, communities are all uprooted. Once again, the correction officers who have worked through the pandemic, who have been the essential workers that have worked every day, they didn't get to work from home. They showed up every day to do their job, being assaulted at record numbers. We've reported the assaults time and time again. The violence is increasing. The inmates are being confined into smaller jails and smaller settings instead of being spread out, and the officers are the ones suffering. They're receiving scars and injuries that we haven't seen the level of in decades. Auburn, not too long ago, the officer received 30 stitches across the side of his face. That was well publicized. Since then, stabbings at Attica, stabbings at Elmira, stabbings at Wendy. These are becoming commonplace due to a watered-down discipline system because of an agenda that calls and falls into halt. We understand that there has to be a give and take to a certain extent in how we move forward in the 21st century and on with corrections. But the model that the state is following right now doesn't work. It works with record numbers of workman's comp, well established. Officers are being injured and they're scarred for life. These are our friends, our brothers. We work with these people. Southport is my home facility. I've worked a time up in Willard, and I've been over to Elmira. All of these facilities are turned upside down due to lack of staffing because of the state's inability to stay ahead of what the requirements are to keep these facilities staffed so they can be safe. Once again, we are the political pawns of a supermajority in Albany that wants to dictate how we're going to run facilities and how we're going to do treatment from here on out, and yet we still get scarred for life. Our families are uprooted. We're affected. This has to come to an end. I thank our legislative leaders that back us and support us and recognize the real problems in these facilities. Southport was designed to be a supermax, to hold the worst of the worst, and they have done so very well for the last 30 years. Yes, they are violent facilities. These are violent inmates. You keep seeing where the state keeps letting them out. Crime is rising, and eventually there's going to be a problem to where, what's the answer? Do we put them back in jail or not? You're eliminating programs that were designed to help and treat those inmates so that they can go back out. Governor Hochul makes a decision to close those facilities even after she says she supports repurposing for treatment. Is she not on the same page with her own department docs? Is she telling them what to do, or is she being told by them what to do? Because the messages that we're getting don't add up. And the public and the communities, they suffer as well. I want to thank you all for coming. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. At this point in time, just to give you an idea, Livingston closed a little over 2.5 years ago. There are still officers from that closure working in Southport that can't get back to their home facilities. Gowanda closed last year. There are still Gowanda officers in here that can't get back to their home facilities. That's not counting the Watertown closure from last year as well. We have multiple closures that have affected across here where families are uprooted for years. This isn't a simple, oh yeah, we get to keep a job. Absolutely. We work for the state of New York. We get placed anywhere in the state. And we work our way back home through our seniority and our bidding rights. But when you come in and you close a facility, you uproot people, they're on the road for years and they're traveling for years. And I can tell you right now, after just walking through this facility, there are still officers that can't get home from the Livingston closure.
So you were kind of talking about like the officers kind of moving out of the community because of Southport. Now, how does closing Southport kind of impact like the local community and kind of moving those resources out of the area?
Okay, Southport works hand in hand with all its local businesses. We have always taken an approach, whether it's through the NYSCOPBA union or the other unions or even through the facility. We have a fabulous QWL building in the grounds. All those materials were bought through local businesses. When we do our meetings, we get food and we use the restaurants from those local businesses. We support local businesses around all these facilities. That was the design of how these facilities to go in to integrate with the communities. These officers are your coaches of your softball team, your high school baseball teams. They're entrenched in almost every facet of everything that happens within this community. I can tell you, I don't live that far from here. I'm in this community. And to lose this facility, you're going to have people now, because of the previous closures, that are going to have to go even further on the road. Families, and I can tell you, there were resignations just submitted today. A 15-year veteran walked in and goes, I can't do it anymore, turned in his badge, turned in his resignation, and walked off the job yesterday. They have been at record staffing levels, so these people are being mandated 16-hour shifts. We're not done with COVID in the facilities. We still have those issues going on, and we're still short-staffed. You can only push a department so far before they break. And as far as the community, I bet you can't walk around here and not see a NYSCOPBA sign hanging even in the arena, at the ballparks. We are well entrenched. We donate thousands of dollars. We believe in our communities, but we don't do it just here. We do it in every community there's a facility. So when you take us out, that's a void that never gets filled back in. Any other facility that was closed, drive by them. They look like in shambles. They're not even maintained. That's what they leave behind when they close a facility.
Next question. Based off that, millions of dollars you're saying have been invested in this facility.
Mhm.
Concern, you talk about drug treatment areas. Is there concern that it's just going to be left vacant or that nothing will happen with it? I mean, what do you think is going to end up happening with this facility now? It's closed?
We've never seen, and Camp Monterey is still vacant to this day. That was many, many years ago when that closed. I've yet to see them repurpose a facility for anything. You know, this is going to become a mothball here, and if they have any plans, I'm sure they haven't shared it with us, and the legislature doesn't know anything about it. So I think they close them, hope the people forget, and this one, they drive by and they see the eyesore that's left behind, and that's what they become. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.